All right. Well, we're just going to have a conversation. Very simple. All right. Who's ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. All right, guys. Welcome to another episode of PITSTOP PIONEERS. Today, I have the privilege and the honor to introduce one of my best friend, longest friend, Patrik Lackermeier. Welcome here in the States.
Hey.
This is how it works. Patrik is a pilot, among other things, and we will talk about this in a little bit. So he just gave me notice about 4 or 5 days ago. Is like, shoot me a text like, "Hey, I'm gonna be in Newark or somewhere else first," and then it changed again, and because he's flying all over the world, and so I drop everything, or we drop everything when Patrik comes, because, like I said, he's one of my oldest friends, and usually, I just want to say, usually this is not how we speak with each other, right? We're both Swiss, so our native tongue will be Schweizerdeutsch or Swiss German. That's how we normally communicate with each other. But, for the sake of the podcast and also the video and our friends here and all around the world, we're just going to do it in English. It's all right?
Oh, you're so good.
We can do it, man. That's awesome. So, as I said, so Patrik and I, we just give you a little background. We know each other for pretty much 30 years, I would say.
Yeah,
right?
Just about 30 years.
And do you remember how we met?
I think we met at a friend's home.
Okay.
Yeah. That we had a common friend, and we've been meeting there at a kind of a teenage party at that time.
A teenage? Well, hold on.
Yeah,
a teenage party.
I mean, we were teenagers at the time.
Right,
well, I remember you were the only one who had a driver's license in the car. So you had.
And we packed up the car, right?
Yeah,
you remember how many people we used to pack?
You had to pick up everyone and drop off everyone after the party.
Yeah, man, that's how it was. I used to have a Seat Ibiza. That's even a car that doesn't exist here.
Wasn't it black?
It was a black one, and it was the Spanish model. I mean, it's a Spanish car, and so normally it seats 5 people, right? What do you think? What do you guys think? How many people we packed in this car? It was before we were wiser and older, as now a little aged and seasoned. How many do you think, Patrik, did we pack in?
I don't know, maybe 10.
I think it could be the record, because like we used to, wherever there was space, we packed people in. It comes in handy to have a car. But this is how we met. And I know at the beginning, I don't know, we had a lot of mutual friends, and so we knew of each other. But then something happened, and I don't know how this happened, but we ended up living in the same place. We were roommates, right?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember the address where we lived?
Yeah, that was on top of a hill in Zurich. It's called Immaas. Number 19.
Number 19. Oh, you remember the number? I wouldn't even remember.
I still remember that. I think it was 19.
Could be. I mean,
we
who
were
knows?
older than that at the time.
Yeah, we can make something up. Nobody really, unless some people from that era. Hopefully, maybe they watch and they will then shoot us a comment and say, "Hey, no, it was 17. No, it was 10." And what was amazing about that place, among many things, is, do you remember what was an amazing thing that had to do with the key?
There was a key.
There actually was a key.
We actually didn't have one.
No,
because the key was somewhere hidden.
Somewhere hidden.
Somewhere hidden. I think on the top of the door frame.
Right.
The entrance door. So everyone knew where it was.
that's the
except
joke.
the intruders. And
Right.
sometimes we were coming home from work and the house was already full with people that don't live there.
Yeah, right. So
were
we
like
pay rent
cooking,
and right.
serving beers, iced tea, whatever. And we had like the best rooftop bar in Zurich.
Right, and everybody knew where the key was, or they just walked in. And I remember at least one time, I wanted to go to my bed and there was somebody else sleeping in there. Did that happen to you too?
No, because usually, I don't know, I had the tiniest bed, so nobody wanted it.
Oh, maybe that's what it was. Okay, but it was a beautiful place. It was a beautiful time in our lives. I think it left a mark on us. It shaped us. It formed us, because we are still friends with some of those people up to today, right?
Oh yeah.
Right, and Corinne. So this is another story. So today, actually, sorry to shift gear a little bit, But so today is actually Green and mine, my wedding anniversary, 19 years. And today, 19 years ago, guess who was here with us in Princeton when we got married? This guy. He was my best man, one of my best men. There were two or three. And so we go way back, as I said, and it's just an honor to have you here on this day. We're going to celebrate a little later on. It's just a beautiful occasion. And how long, Patrik, do you think we were roommates?
Well, in Zurich, it was about a little over a year,
Right.
But then we moved somewhere else, and that was, I think, in total, I think it was about close to 7 years, I guess.
That's right on. That was on my notes. This guy didn't even see my notes, and look at this. He knows because we had a lot of happenings or events in Moss, right? But then we also when we moved to another location. And we had another person living with us first, and then it was mainly the two of us for the longest and most time. And my sister was living next door, so we were also babysitting at times. And I don't know, left.
I think she was babysitting us.
Yeah, probably you're right. And there was always when we were bachelors, right? So I remember we setting up these events or parties on the weekend, and everybody was coming. I don't even know how we did this because there was no text messaging. There was nothing like that yet. Maybe it was just about to. Yeah, I remember, we had cell phones that were about that big, and the battery it was a backpack, right? got the battery in my backpack. That's another story. Maybe that's gonna unfold later on. But it was an interesting season of our lives because we were bachelors. We loved pasta. I think we made pasta as much as possible, day and night or every day, unless we had a party and people brought food and beverages. And the cool thing about hosting a party is that there's so much left over, and that lasted us pretty much for the rest of the week. So then, till the next party started, we were good to go. Something like that, right? Do you recall the same thing?
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so, saying all of this, and you just jump in if you feel like a story comes up, something from that era, and I will ask you later on because. So Patrik came in yesterday. We went out to eat. And we talked nonstop, and this is basically an extension of our conversation because I just felt like when I explained to Patrik, it's like, hey, I want to have you on my podcast or my vlogs, and he's like, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on? What is this? And I explained to him a little bit what is my motivation, why I want to do this, and simply having a conversation with people that mean something in my life. And he's been a long-time friend, and he has a lot to say and share. I know I've been talking a lot so far, but he has a lot to say, and I want to hear it. So starting this off, so Patrik is a pilot, right? And I remember you had another job before you became a pilot because we lived together. What kind of job did you do?
Yeah, I was working in engineering as a project manager, and that was basically my main income, and with that income, I managed to do and graduate my pilot school.
It's amazing. I remember, Patrik, you always had that dream to fly, right? It was in you, and you have to understand something about Switzerland. I think a lot of things have changed, but at that time when we grew up, there was a system in place that's normally this is what you study, that's what you go to school for, and that's what you normally do, right? And so. In order to cut it to become a pilot, you need to be good in school. I'm not saying that you weren't. I'm just saying there's certain requirements that need to be in place in order to even do that or study that. And Patrik did it differently, right? I mean, you studied a certain job, as you said, and then on top of this, you decided like, hey, wait a minute, I always had this dream in my heart. Tell me about this dream of flying.
Yeah, I mean, the dream of flying, I think fire started in me when I was a little kid at 7 years. I remember my neighbors, his dad was a pilot in Swissair and with the Swiss Air Force. And I was so fascinated all the time of this, flying airplanes and the technical stuff. And so he gave me a poster when I was 7. And I had this poster up until I moved out, I think, from my parents' home. And I always looked at this poster and said, like, one day it's going to be me in front there in the cockpit, sitting and flying this airplane. And I kind of lost the dream a bit throughout the teenage time. And when I was in the early 20s, it started to come back, and it's like, this is what I want. And it's not engineering, and it's not going to university and get like a proper office job. And I realized I'm not the office type of guy. I need something else that just kind of gives me the joy and the motivation to carry on. So I had a time when I traveled in Alaska, and I was camping next to a river, and I was close to a little airstrip that constantly airplanes were taking off and landing for sightseeing flights, and they were going up to Mount McKinley onto the glacier with these planes, and I was there and having my fire and doing my barbecuing and
peanut butter.
And eating my peanut butter, with the finger out of the jar. Yeah. And I was looking at these airplanes. And the next day, I booked myself a flight, and I was a passenger on one of these Beavers, very old school Canadian planes, and they flew me up on this glacier. When I came back, I said, like, this is what I want. I always wanted this. This started so many years ago, and I went back from my journey from Alaska. And I came back and I told Thomas, hey, something just changed. This is what I want. And I was looking for the proper flight school in Switzerland. And then shortly after that, I started my aviation academy.
It's amazing. I mean, you guys, this is in short, right? I mean, I was involved in I saw it firsthand. Patrik going through this and rekindling a dream, basically, and it was an honor for me, to see that Patrik. Sometimes we have pipe dreams. Just like, I would love to be an astronaut or whatever, and sometimes you need to have this, and people actually really become that. I see that with my son right now. That's another story of what he feels he wants to become, which is great. You need to fuel that, and having something set in place. And I think it was also not easy. You correct me, like telling your parents, or like, this is what you want to do now, because it was finances involved. I mean, you basically, you worked a job in order to finance going back to school and pay for this whole education, become a pilot, right?
Yeah.
And guys, this is amazing. That costs a lot of money. I mean, I know it costs a lot of money here. Think about it, how much it costs in Switzerland, and but you did it.
I did it.
You did it, man.
I did it.
And now you're flying.
Yeah.
And so tell me real quick. So now, once if you finished your education, right now you're what do you call that? A private pilot? Is that the right expression, or what is that?
Yeah, I'm not a private pilot. Private pilot is usually referred to those who do recreational flying. So that do the flying as a hobby with like a single engine Cessna.
Yeah.
What I do is I am a commercial pilot still. I have a commercial license,
right,
but I fly private individuals
That's
on their private-owned airplane or on a corporate jet that is owned by a corporation or a large company.
That's amazing. And so I know, I mean, if you feel at liberty to say and share this, because you just mentioned that. So it's, I remember you did your private license, so with the little planes, and then you did the commercial license with the big planes, and you flew for, at that time, was I think Ball Air still, right? Before it became Swiss. Is that correct?
It was Crossair.
Oh, Crossair.
It was 20 years ago, in 2001, in January. I started my base training then on the jet in Crossair.
Wow, and from there to...
Yeah, and the magic about it, it was actually exactly for the same aircraft that I had the poster hung up as a kid.
Wow.
It was an MD-80.
Well, I didn't even know that part. That is amazing. Wow.
And it was one of the last MD-80 operators in Europe at that time, because this airplane is a bit old school. It started to be replaced by Airbuses and new generation 737s at that time. So I was so privileged to be basically one of the last ones starting on this jet.
Man, so just to recapture this, so you had a photography, like a poster of a certain plane.
Yeah.
You always dreamed to fly. first it looked at times that would not be possible, different circumstances, and also life, right?
Yeah.
Age, whatever. And eventually you not only did all of this, and you end up flying that plane that was on that photography. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, that hits deep. This is amazing. And so, we let this sink in a bit, but going from commercial airlines to private jets, you meet some quite interesting individuals, right? Or we would even say celebrities. Are you at liberty to even share like some of the people, or maybe I have somebody in mind, but that's up to you, who you were flying around, and
Yes, of course, I do fly and did fly actors, musicians, rock stars, or well-known entrepreneurs. So it's very interesting how this is. So for me, it's not just the passion about my job. It's not just the flying bit, but it's also a bit. It's the traveling bit as well, especially on a corporate and private jet. It's like you never know where you end up next week or the next day, and that's the coincidence that we meet right now.
Right.
With Thomas a week ago, nobody of us would have thought that I will be doing this right now.
No idea.
And but this is my life, and this is the way it is, So I'm almost every week surprised by new destinations and meeting new people, important people, politicians, and entrepreneurs, economists, and all such. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to name the people.
Good.
But you can guess, probably.
You can guess, and I think we can do this because that's not wrong. There's a song by an individual that motivated you through that school.
Yeah.
And it's called "Fly Away."
Yeah. At the time, I was in the aviation training, and I started my first lessons on the single-engine aircrafts. There was an album coming out, number 5, by Lenny Kravitz, and it had this particular song, "I Want to Fly Away," and this song kept me through all the trainings, especially all the upsets and setbacks, because it's not just happening like this, and
Right.
even if you're maybe a smart person and talented, you will have your setbacks, and you have to go through difficulties. And I had difficulties in different areas of just handling an airplane.
Right.
I was very good in technical stuff and knowledge, but a bit the motoric part. So I had to train and learn maybe a bit more than others. And
in English too.
And sometimes I was just frustrated, and I was driving home from the airfield, and I put in this song, and it just gave me another kick. It's like, no, one day I'm gonna fly away.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's a good song.
Yeah, it is a good song.
Good song by a great artist. So that's cool. Thank you. Thanks for sharing this. You also, I want to shift gears a little bit. So you have a family, right? You have a wife, 2 beautiful children. You guys were here 2 years ago, and you did something phenomenal, special. And as we were talking yesterday, because 2 years ago I was in a different place. We all go through seasons and phases, and I'll talk about this more some other time. But when you guys came, I didn't know what motivated you to go on a sabbatical. You did an extensive sabbatical, and I have bits and pieces you shared with me, and not because you didn't want to share it, simply because I probably didn't listen enough at that time. Sorry about that. But what I found out a year ago, my dad passed away, and you and some other friends came to that funeral because also you knew my dad. You were in a home, or like their house basically, and so there was interaction, and it meant the world to me that you and some other friends showed up. I mean, not because I expected it, because this all happened like fast, and I had to, from here travel to Switzerland and all this stuff, and then set up the funeral and the memorial service. And then we met. We had like an afterglow, like an after time talking to each other. But as we were speaking yesterday, and then you shared something with me, and I mentioned that to you yesterday, and it really hit home and hit deep, because you basically not only had sympathy, obviously, going through this, that I was going through this, because you lost your father how many years ago?
Yeah, what is 13 years?
13 years ago, right? So you knew what I was going through because you experienced it 13 years ago. And I remember you told me that not only you had sympathy for where I was in at that point in my life, but you said, listen, I buried my dad, right? That's how you, I mean, you can correct me, but I buried my dad, and I buried my dad with a dream that he had that he never fulfilled, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so that, this incident of burying my dad and realizing this made me realize something on my own, that I'm not gonna die like my dad, and not because that's good or bad death. It's just what happens, right? But that I will not die with a dream in my heart that is not fulfilled. Something like that. Is that fair to say? That's what he said.
That's about it. What I said. Yeah.
And that really struck me, because that motivated you to go on a sabbatical, in short, right? So tell me more about this.
Yeah, I think this is one of the important reasons why it was also like a motivation for the sabbatical. Romana and I, we always wanted to do this, like a kind of a world travel, and because we love to explore, we love to travel, we love to meet new people, new cultures, and see new perspectives. But basically what Tom is talking about is sometimes we have a dream in our heart, and then we say like, maybe it's not the time yet, or we have different excuses. It's the money, or the time, or the kids are too young, or now I have a good job and I need to work a bit harder to get maybe a promotion or a raise or this. So we have so many excuses to say no to that dream at that point, and we'll save it up for later. And at some point, it's just going to be too late. And this is something that happened to my dad. He had these dreams of hiking in different areas. He was hiking in California, in Switzerland, in the Alps of Austria, Italy, everywhere. But he wanted to see other places, and he wanted to travel, and he saved it for his retirement. But that was obviously too late.
Wow. So he did part of those dreams he fulfilled, because I remember, like you mentioned, like I think he did not the Appalachian Trail. It's another trail that goes from Mexico to Canada, right?
Yeah, there is a trail. I mean, it's one of the most famous trails in the US is the John Muir Trail in Yosemite. And he started when he was maybe around 60. He had a working colleague that was talking about this trail, that he always wanted to do that himself. And my dad said, like, let's do it together. My dad's before never really been in the US. I mean, yeah, a couple of times maybe for business, but he has never really seen and traveled nor hiked in the US. So they did that. This trail is usually, I think, for a week. Okay. So you can do that. But it's another trail. It's called the Pacific Crest Trail, that basically goes all along the Rocky Mountain Ridge from the Mexican border to the Canadian border. Wow. You can take it even further, because the Rocky Mountains go way, way, way up, almost to Alaska. But this Pacific Crest Trail, that was his dream.
Okay, so he wanted to do the whole thing, like in segments? He wanted to do
the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yes, and he saved that for his retirement. This is like, I need more time. That was his excuse at that time. And so he saved that and saved that.
So now, for you, knowing this and realizing this, you did something quite extraordinary. I mean, like, you decided, all right, I'm gonna quit my job for a while. You have a house, do something with that, rent it out, save money, or had saved money or something, whatever. You don't need to give details about that, but in order to just like, we're gonna do this now. I'm not gonna wait till I'm retired, and this might never come to pass. So how was that? I mean, how was the response in your own family? How was the response with your friends? I mean, like they all think like crazy, or like, and tell me a little bit about that experience of taking off, just doing it.
I think it's very difficult to understand such a decision if you have never done this decision yourself, first of all. And I think there you have to be flexible enough to accept maybe different opinions from your friends, your family. But I think our family was very understanding, but at the same time, not really understanding. Okay, I mean, they were supportive.
Yeah.
But I think for them it was hard to understand to do a step like this. Especially, I can tell I quit probably a perfect job I had at that time. I was really happy in that job. I was working in a great team, in a good environment. I was well paid. I had a good lifestyle. Everything was great. Also, our kids were in a good school. Everything was great. So why change things? But we felt like now is the time.
Okay.
So we wanted to do this. And basically, we always wanted to do this. But we were talking for a long time, like, when the kids grow up, then we do this. Right. And then suddenly it was like, why not doing this as a family? And then we said, like, maybe like, when our kids are that age. But suddenly we said, like, we have to do this next year. It came suddenly and we felt it. And I think if we would have waited another year, we all know the situation of COVID. If we would have waited another year, it would have never happened.
Wow. So you were
because
spot on.
The borders would have been closed.
Right.
And it was just like the Kairos moment, the last chance to do it for us. And that's why for us, this experience and the privilege to be able to do a sabbatical with a world travel, to explore all these countries, cultures, people. It's wow. It just gives me, it blows my mind still.
Right. So in short, so what did you cover? Like, where did you go and for how long?
We started in the US. We started in Florida, and we got ourselves an RV. And we traveled for close to 6 months. The entire East Coast almost, up to New York.
Okay.
So from Key West up to here, Princeton area. Showed the kids New York, how a really cosmopolitan city could be, with all the smells and flavors.
That's a good way to put it, right?
And then we crossed the whole continent from the East Coast here, over to the West Coast. And I mean, understand this, I mean, for all you American viewers, you tell about how different the states can be.
Right.
For us as Europeans, sometimes it all seems to be the same, okay? But when you travel and you see, there are some major difference.
Right.
I mean, the states are different, the people change, and the food not so much.
A burger is a burger.
But just the landscape, how it changes, especially once you kind of pass the Great Lakes area, suddenly everything starts to change. It's just, for us, with the pictures I still have in mind, it's just like to see so far. In Switzerland, you don't see that far. I never had the impression that I see way beyond the horizon. And sometimes when we started like to go into states like North Dakota, South Dakota, we were like on these highways with our RV, and we were like up on a hill, and you would see miles and miles. You would see the highway going in a straight line. It's amazing. It's amazing how far you can see, and the clear sky.
Big sky country, they call it, right?
Big sky country. Yeah.
Just to intercept real quick, because I had a thought, because you mentioned that, which was amazing, as you told me a little bit about your journey yesterday, or Corinne and I. You met some people here in the States while you were on your sabbatical that are not American, right? And it just, tell me, like, there's at least, well, hold on, three different, like, how did that work? Like, in short, like.
It is. This is the cool thing about the modern IT age
Right.
and social media. I'm not really a fan and so much into social media, but I'm a bit into Instagramming. And through our travel, I published some photos all the time on my Instagram account. And I got some feedback and reactions. And it's friends from back home, from Switzerland, from like that I knew and had contact with from way back, like 20, 25 years ago. But then we kind of lost contact and we lost kind of the point of interest.
Right.
And we've never seen each other for a long, long time. But suddenly these people start to react on photos and it's like, hey, this is your angle of view or what you do is, I like that and I would like to see more. And then suddenly the question arose like, hey, did you move to the States or what?
Right.
And then we started to message forth and back to each other. And then suddenly he's like, hey, I'm going to be with my family in Minnesota for 2 weeks. I was like, wow, we might see each other because
it's a small state.
It's a long, yeah, it's a small country. It's a small country. Yeah.
What are the odds? You know, we're going to see each other.
Yeah. We met.
Wow.
We met at the place in Minnesota, and we shared dinner and boondocked with our RV on his brother's driveway. And it was so amazing, you know, just to see people after so many years. And even though you lose contacts, we realize sometimes the hearts and the spirits, they're still connected.
That's amazing. And then I think the same thing happened in another state. And I think in Hawaii, you met somebody else that actually lives in Israel.
Yeah, then
right
again,
now.
The same thing, a similar thing happened in a place in Arizona where we met in Flagstaff. And another time in Maui, that's the best thing. Sunset with friends that you don't see that much because we live abroad. We don't live in the same country. We're not really able to see each other so often. And even with cheap telephone and Facebook and all such, maybe you don't have daily contact. But once you see each other, it's like hearts getting connected, and it's just amazing.
It is amazing, you know, like you do this journey, and then on top of everything that you experience anyway, this happens too, which is just a super blessing. And like you said, like a rekindling, reconnecting. I just remember like when Corinne and I went to a U2 concert in Madison Square Garden just after we moved here. And we were like, I think Corinne said, I wonder if we're going to run into somebody that we know. I mean, like, right. And we did. We actually ran into somebody that we know that used to live in Switzerland, is married to an American. And out of, millions of people, right? You're at the same place at the same time. And like, what are you doing here? Wait a minute, you know? It's like, and you haven't seen each other in that case for, I don't know, 20 years. I'm just saying a number, you know, it could be less or more, but that's quite amazing. So from there, America, so you went to, just in short, like, did you do like the whole world, or you just...
Yeah, the whole world is a bit, I think it's a little over 200 countries now, so we're not there yet. So it would need
on the road too.
Yeah, next one.
Okay, you do another one. Why not?
Yeah, why not? No, after the States, well, we spent a lot of time in California. After the US, we went for a few weeks. We were almost 2 months, I think, in Costa Rica. First on the Pacific coast, learned to surf. Just chilled. We needed some time to chill because after half a year living in an RV,
that's tough. You need to chill.
You need to chill a bit. Okay, but we had a good time there at the beach, and then we went into central Costa Rica for a couple of weeks, and we were working on a horse ranch, which was really interesting and amazing as well. After Costa Rica, we went to New Zealand. We traveled North and South Island. Very amazing. The people are just so friendly. It's absolutely amazing. I think I've hardly met or been in a country where like almost everyone is just hospitable, friendly.
And kind of content, maybe?
Yeah, I
Something,
think it's a very special country, and this
Wow.
landscape. We did the South Island, and those who watched Lord of the Rings, I think if you travel South Island and you have this vast landscape, no house, nothing is there, and you see this, and it's like, wow, it remembers me of this bunch of group, you know.
This is where the Rohingyans come down.
That was like walking around there over 3 episodes.
You shall not pass. Or
Yeah,
something.
it is beautiful. It's stunning.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is absolutely stunning.
Eventually, did you make it home before COVID?
Yeah,
Like-
just about it.
okay.
After New Zealand, we spent a week in Sydney. We went to Singapore, and after that, we didn't really have sincere plan, or
Okay.
we knew exactly. But somehow, I realized on a booking app, I saw like, wow, cheap flights to Hawaii. Let's go.
Before
So we booked it, and we spent a couple of weeks in Hawaii, and that's where we met other friends in Maui.
that don't live there, by the way,
that
because
don't
they
live
were
there.
there just at the same time. I guess
Yes.
it's like, wow.
And just about when really COVID started to hit worldwide, and all these national lockdowns started to happen, and air traffic started to slow down. We were starting basically this was our plan to go back to Europe and then travel Europe. But then we were stuck for a couple of days in San Francisco because there were no flights anymore until we could be rebooked. And then we were going back to Frankfurt, and then we basically, with a rental car, we went back to Switzerland. And then all the borders closed.
Wow.
We were just stuck. We had no house, we had nothing.
starting over.
Starting all over. And so we were basically stuck somewhere in a little Airbnb in the Swiss Alps for several weeks.
Not a bad place to be stuck.
And it was, maybe you can call it, it's frustrating, you know, why being stuck in your own country, you know, we could have been stuck in Hawaii, where it would have been nicer.
Tough. Yeah, right.
We were actually thinking about it. It's like, Hawaii is quite expensive, you know, it busts the budget. But just being there a couple of weeks in a tiny little village that I had never been before. I passed it a couple of times with my car, but I've never been it. And but we were there, and now we even have friends there.
It's amazing.
And we've been there now for like short vacations a couple of times.
It's amazing then, because, you know, like you said, there are certain things you plan, and then stuff happens that you can't plan, but you felt it's the right time. You did it against many odds, and you made it home. And then, in short, like a lot of things, I mean, you told me yesterday, within such a short time, house, job, school, car, it's like everything just fell into place, you know, as almost like as a confirmation, man, we did the right thing. I mean, obviously you never know, but it just happened that way. Can you tell me, so we heard a little bit about your background, just in short, like your story, becoming a pilot, then just what recently happened in your life. What are you taking away from the sabbatical for you, for your family, and what's next?
I think what I really take also from the sabbatical is, I mean, we all know that. I would quote it like this: the only thing that doesn't change is our life, that we need to change, and we need to adapt to new situations in our life daily. We see that now with new sanctions on COVID and this and that, you know. I mean, situations always change. And
it's just changed now. The weather, like, I don't know if you hear this.
It
was okay, and now the storm is coming in, man.
Before it was like steaming hot outside. Now it's pouring. So there's change is part of life.
Right.
You know, if change doesn't happen, if we don't evolve, then we start to basically die, you know, and life gets boring. So there's always change, and we have throughout the sabbatical, you know, we always needed to adapt to new situation.
Yeah.
And we had, not everything is bright and fun, you know, we had challenges.
Right.
And but it's all about what do you do with it? How do you deal with it? Do you see it as a burden and a setback, or as a failure, or do you see it as a chance to make something new and make progress, change your own habits, maybe? So I think that's something I take out of the sabbatical, and that there's so much more. And sometimes you need to take risky steps, maybe like quitting a job, even though you like it, but you want to pursue a dream and say, this is what I want to do. But when I've done it, I can still go back to a job. And even though I never get that great job again, maybe are you willing to pay the price because that dream is in you and you really want to explore and discover and unveil that dream?
I think you hit a good point. I just want to add to this, or just park here for a second, like the taking a risk. And in our culture, in Swiss culture and American culture to a certain degree, obviously it's a little different, but just saying, like, I know a lot of people, or I meet people, you have a dream, some pursue it, it's hard, it's always hard. Pursue a dream, I'm telling you, out of experience, you can confirm this, it's hard. It will not be easy. Otherwise, everybody would it just would happen. But you need to go after it. And sometimes you need to make sacrifices and taking a risk. Because I remember coming, like, it was just last week, it was 7 years till we decided to leave Switzerland and come here. Like similar like you, comfortable place, great job. We were settled, everything was in place. There was no reason naturally, right? That would have made sense. Why would we go to America? Even though, believe me, I love America. I love the culture. I love the history. I love everything about America. But but we needed to make a decision and see. Hey, we needed to find out for ourselves. Well, how would that look like? I don't know. I had certain ideas. Some of them manifested, some not at all, and that took me on a long journey. That's for another story. But what I'm taking away with this thing, what you said about taking a risk, because you can read about world traveling, right? You can read about piloting, or like even sitting in a plane. It's like, this is great, but it's a whole different thing if you're the pilot. If you actually go out there and do it and say, hey, I'm going to travel the world, I'm going to quit my job. And I'm not saying this that everybody needs to quit their jobs now. This was Patrik's dream, or his family's dream to do. So they needed to do that. Maybe for you or for somebody else, it's something else. But just saying there is a risk involved because you don't know the outcome. And some people, I think, don't even start because we're too much afraid. Is that a fair statement?
It is, and it's very much for the Swiss culture, just to understand it. It's not really usual and common that we take risks here, because we are in such a safe haven. Right. It's such a beautiful country. I mean, everything is so stable and well established. And so once you're in that comfort zone and everything is kind of good, then you start to think, why should I do this? It's nice, it's okay, And of course, I have my dream and I want to travel the world, but it's kind of nice here, So I can accept not to pursue my dream. But I think there might come the day when you're old enough, and I don't know, maybe you're 70, 75, and 82, and then you think like, I should have done that.
Right, that's the thing, right?
And that's the thing, and because you can, I don't know. I said like, look, I think as this, I can, if my retirement money is not enough, I can still go back to work. But when the dream is here, to do a world travel or to explore this or take a time out and do a sabbatical and pursue things or explore new things, maybe gardening or another hobby, surfing.
Photography for you?
Photography for me was photography. I explored that passion back during my sabbatical, and so it started something in me. So why not, take the risk and pursue that dream that you have in you. And maybe you will see that suddenly doors start to open up, or new situations or new chances.
This is a great point. I want to I want to two more things before I'm going to have you on again. I mean, there's so much we can talk about. I mean, we have a lot of history. But so one thing is yesterday that when Corinne and you and I were sitting here in the lounge and we were having a beer and just talking until I just fell asleep. Not because it was boring, I was just done. But there was a story with one of our friends. He's a Russian friend. And it came to mind. I think it's just super funny. It's like I want to incorporate some of these stories as well. It was like what's in your trophy trove, like take this out, share with everybody. And so this particular friend, he used to live with us in that. I'm going back now to Imas, and we had guests and people traveling through, and like I was saying, sometimes somebody spent the night or even whatever, and so this was a Russian friend of yours that one of your acquaintances. And I remember Corinne still tells the story. Everybody, like when we have a digestive, we have a grappa or something, or a whiskey. In my Russian friend Konstantin would say, we measure this in bulbul, right? Yeah. Can you explain to us what the measuring in bulbul is?
Well, we still haven't figured it out because. No. The next question was, Konstantin, he's like, he was telling this story, in Russia, we measure not in centimeters or in pints, we measure in bulbul, because you pour into the glass and it makes bool. So now the question is that we start to give to Konstantin, it's like, well, is it bull or is it bull? Which is the unit now?
Okay, is it bull or bulbul? See, it's hard.
He still owes that answer.
Okay, maybe he watches this. Maybe Konstantin, if you see this, give us an answer. We want to know. But then, this is one story with Konstantin. But then another one, we had dinner. You need to tell this story. And I think it's funny.
Yeah, it was back in our first place in Zurich. Right. So we had this Italian friend over, so we were cooking pasta, and Konstantin was living with us for the summer. We had him imported directly from Russia.
Imported him. Come live with us.
Come live with us.
Go.
So we were eating, I don't know, a couple of friends at the table, and then Thomas saw a cockroach. He doesn't remember this.
No, I don't.
So he started to see that cockroach crossing kind of the kitchen floor, and he was like, Antonio, I give you $100 if you pick up that cockroach and eat it. And he, Italian, forget it. I'm not going to do that.
Come on.
And you see that constantly. He's not paying attention to the whole conversation.
He was just eating pasta.
He was eating his spaghetti, not really paying much attention. And we were like, yeah, come on, Antonio, $100. I mean, it's a lot of money, Hey, it's just a cockroach. And he's like, no, I prefer the pasta. And then suddenly, constantly, he starts to look up and it's like, I'll do it for 50.
What are you guys talking about? $100, man. I do it for 50. So we will not share the information. Did he do it or not? That again, Konstantin, feel free to answer that, or if not, we just leave that open. But I think it's a great story. Thanks for sharing that. So Patrik, we want to wrap this up. Thank you so much. Well, two more things. Where can we find you? You're a photographer as well. You mentioned Instagram. What is your Instagram? And I will obviously put that in the text later on.
Yeah, I've got an Instagram account called Lackermeier Photography.
Okay.
So you'll see pictures from the sabbatical, from the road travel, but also my view as a pilot, as a captain, out of the cockpits, or when I'm in layovers in different countries.
So yeah, follow him and see where he travels to. It's really interesting because in our conversation too, he loves to live out of a suitcase and explore the world. It's in his heart. He's a vagabond, a wanderer, and he wants to fill that, what God put in his heart to explore. So thank you so much for that. Last thing, moving to the future, next to taking risks. What's coming for you? What's the next step?
Actually, I really don't know, but
okay.
It's I tell you this. I mean, we came back from the sabbatical. Yeah, of course, I quit my job.
Yeah.
We had to find a new place, a new home to live, integrated the kids back into school. We needed a car, everything, within the last year, everything kind of came back. Last December, I said like, hey, look, my type specific rating that's for the airplane type I'm allowed to fly has expired. So I said like, hey, I'll do it now, and paid up my own pocket. You can imagine how expensive this is. Everything in aviation is expensive.
Yeah, I can.
But I took that risk again. It's like, well, if I don't have a job, I'll have to do it myself, and start as a freelance pilot all over again. And with this, I got this opportunity to fly as a freelance. Things started to come into place, and now it's going to be a future permanent position for me on that airplane. My first assignment after that, getting the license back.
It's amazing. I think it's also like a job that you wanted 10 years ago is now just manifested.
Yes, I wanted to be on that team, on that crew 10 years ago already, but somehow it didn't happen.
Okay.
But now seems to be the right time. Just the door was open. And this is the thing, sometimes you feel so comfortable. Yeah, it seems like you have the perfect job, the perfect home,
right.
Everything is nice. And then you get out of this normal comfort zone.
Right.
And then you have to learn how to live in new cultures, traveling, adapt to new environments, new weather.
Especially now, man. I don't know what's going on in New Jersey.
It makes yourself also very flexible. It makes yourself open and sharp to spot out new opportunities. And I think this is, it has shaped me. The sabbatical has shaped me certainly in that way to make me more sensitive to new opportunities.
That's great. Patrik, thank you so much for sharing your heart. Thanks for being here. You're always welcome. Do you know that? It's such a privilege and honor to have you here in our house. Thank you for your friendship. And guys, stay tuned for what comes next with Pit Stop Pioneers. I will conduct more interviews, not interviews, sorry, that's the wrong, actually conversations. We just sit down, have a conversation. I'll still work on this and improve. And I think it's great to hear the story of people around us. Because it's interesting, and just even to hear, hopefully you got take something away from Patrik's life, and especially the thing with risks, and step out and try to do that. So we will see you hopefully later. Thank you so much, Patrik. Bye-bye for now.
Bye now.